Paid just $20 to sabotage a blind date, she discovered an unexpected love with a millionaire CEO. Jenna sat in her cramped apartment, staring blankly at the pile of bills scattered across the kitchen table. The weight of her responsibilities bore down on her like an anchor, making it hard to breathe. As a single mom from Newark, every day felt like waging a battle against a relentless tide. With 2 part-time jobs barely keeping food on the table and school supplies for Mia's upcoming year barely tangling at the back of her mind, hope flickered like a dim candle, easy to snuff out. So when she received a text offering her $20 to sabotage a blind date, the temptation gnawed at her like a ravenous beast. That money could mean new crayons, fresh notebooks, a world of possibility for her daughter. She never imagined she would accept such an undignified mission, but wearing the crown of resilience sometimes led to choices that felt like snares. The target, Richard, was a suave CEO from an affluent suburb, a man who surely saw life through silver-lined glasses. As she prepared for the evening, Jenna's thoughts twisted and turned. She was supposed to sabotage, to ruin, to pull the rug out from under this stranger's perfect facade, but each time she thought about it, a heavy lump formed in her throat. Could she really betray someone she had yet to meet? Jenna arrived at the trendy new bistro, the rich aroma of prepared dishes swirling around her. As she walked into the dazzling space filled with laughter and clinking glasses, the contrast between the stylish decor and her jeans and worn sneakers struck her like a slap in the face. She felt invisible, a ghost haunting the margins of a world not made for her. Yet she steeled herself, reminding herself she was a fighter. But when Richard walked in, all charm and genuine warmth, something shifted. His easy banter made her laugh, and their conversation flowed effortlessly, moving from casual topics to more personal stories. The way he talked about overcoming adversity, not in abstract terms but in the rawness of real experience, began to dismantle the walls Jenna had built around her heart. How could someone who seemed so polished understand the grit it took for her to get by day in and day out? Yet there he stood, reflecting her struggles back at her, shifting her preconceived notions about who he was. Before she could fully grasp the depth of what she was feeling, Jenna was hit with a wave of panic. This wasn't just a job. It was a real connection, one that she had never expected to form. The internal tug-of-war intensified. Should she betray this genuine spark with deceit? The practical side of her screamed for her to complete the job, to dash hopes for a quick buck to get Mia what she needed. The other side, the one that yearned for companionship, for love, urged her to seize the moment. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jenna stared into Richard's eyes, she felt an urgency deep inside her. Could she really go through with sabotaging a connection that felt as profound as this? Torn, she wrestled with her thoughts, as feelings of guilt began to swell. Richard leaned closer, the atmosphere thick with unspoken truths, and she felt the gravity of their budding relationship pressing down like a storm about to break. The finality hung in the air, tinged with uncertainty, and Jenna's heart raced as she realized she could change everything in one moment. Should she chase after vulnerability, or pull the brakes on something that could bring joy, even while letting someone down in the process? Confusion flooded her mind as she stood on the precipice of a decision that could shatter the fragile connection they had built in the evening's shadows. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, the weight of her internal dilemma threatened to crush her. Jenna took a deep breath, searching for the words that could shift the trajectory of this moment. It was as if time had come to a standstill, the world around her fading into a blur. The emotions flooding through her were like a jigsaw puzzle scattered on the floor, frustratingly complicated yet tantalizingly beautiful. "Richard," she finally whispered, her voice barely a murmur. The reality of her situation cascaded over her with a chilling clarity. The urgency of her life, of bills, of Mia's needs, collided with this unexpected connection. She tried to focus, tried to compartmentalize her thoughts, but it felt impossible. "What is it?" he asked, concern flickering in his eyes, as if he sensed the tumult swirling within her. Jenna's stomach churned. Part of her longed to reveal everything, to confess her intentions and the burden of her reality. But what would he think? Would he see her as a fraud? Would the warmth of their shared laughter evaporate into cold judgment? Her mind wandered to Mia, the little girl with dreams stretching far beyond crayons and notebooks. What if this was a chance at something more for them, a doorway to a world where insecurity and fear didn't clamp down on every decision? But that world was fraught with risk, a risk she wasn't sure she was ready to take. She hesitated, measuring the weight of her words. "I'm not the person you think I am." Richard leaned closer, his gaze steady and unyielding. "Tell me then." There was no judgment in his tone, only curiosity and concern. A flash of connection ignited between them once more, as if he was inviting her to step into a shared vulnerability. What was it about him that grounded her? The flicker of hope mingled with fear surged anew. Perhaps Richard represented more than just a romantic interest. He conveyed an understanding of her struggles that she desperately needed. No longer was she just a single mom fighting against the tide. For the first time in years, she felt seen, yet the thought of executing her task loomed large. A task she had once deemed trivial against the need for survival. Truth was the sword that could cut through the fog. If she continued with this charade, she would be turning her back on the connection they had begun to cultivate. At that moment, the realization struck hard. She had more capability, more depth than she had allowed herself to recognize. Choices could change the landscape of her life, and lying now would only reinforce the shadows in her heart. But where would honesty take her? "While things may be difficult, I have a daughter who needs me. And this date—" She paused, the vulnerability in her voice raw and unedited. "It was supposed to be about sabotaging it for money, but now, I don't want to lose you over something so trivial." Richard's expression transformed, a slow smile crossing his face. He reached across the table, gently taking her hand as if bridging a gap she hadn't known existed. "Why don't we start over then? No games, just us." His sincerity enveloped her, dismantling the walls she had fortified around her. Could she actually find a way to balance this unexpected connection with her responsibilities? For a fleeting moment, she believed. But then Jenna's phone buzzed on the table, breaking the intimacy like a sudden lightning bolt. The name flashing across the screen felt like a thunderous reminder of her obligations. It was the person requiring a check-in for the sabotage. The veil of possibility that had opened began to clamor for attention, beckoning her back to a reality she desperately wanted to escape. Her heart raced as she looked back up at Richard, his glance arching with curious depth. Would she define her journey by her old patterns, or would she dare step into the unknown and let her choices unfold in a new light? The decision pressed against her, and with it came a nagging realization she had yet to confront. A decision loomed, the choice between honesty or the easy path, attachment or loneliness. Just as she was about to respond, her mind fractured with fear, and one question resonated amidst the chaos. Would she allow the fear of losing this moment to lock her into a life preordained, or risk everything for something that felt real, fragile, yet fiercely hopeful? The weight of that uncertainty loomed heavy as she opened her mouth to speak again. But chaos lay just beneath the calm surface of this newfound connection. And time slipped through her fingers as it threatened to tip the delicate balance they had built in that brief, electric moment. Jenna felt the weight of her phone on the table, a small device that held the keys to her obligations and the life she had built. Yet now it felt like an anchor, pulling her away from the ethereal space she had begun to share with Richard. As her hand hovered just above it for a moment, a wave of desperation washed over her. Here was an opportunity slipping through her fingers. Richard's gaze remained steady, free from censure yet full of quiet expectation. How could he offer her this chance without knowing more about her reality? The warmth of his touch flared against her skin and wrapped around her heart. But did she have the courage to embrace this connection when it meant dismantling the hard-fought defenses she had put up for years? Jenna, he gently urged as the call continued to ring, waiting for her attention. The dash of anxiety bubbled beneath the surface as she blinked, her inner war raging. All she seemed capable of at that moment was standing on the precipice, uncertain whether to jump or to retreat back into the safe confines of her fabricated life. The knowledge that she could once again prioritize her fears tightened within her chest. Richard represented a new path, a divergence from the road paved with secrets and self-deceit. But now, to be truly honest meant facing not only the past, but the fault lines of her current existence. "Do you want me to answer that?" Richard asked, clearly picking up on the tension. "No," she whispered. And with that simple denial, she realized that she did want something more than the predictable chaos. She craved the possibilities, the adventure that lay beyond the relentless cycle of survival she had been part of. Yet there was Mia. There was always Mia, the little girl who was unknowingly intertwined in every decision Jenna made. "Listen," she said, shifting to the core of the matter, feeling more resolute than before. "I've lived in the shadows for so long, caught in a loop of compliance just to make ends meet. But I can't keep pretending anymore. This," she motioned to the phone, "this isn't just a hobby for me. It's survival." Richard's expression softened, the concern palpable. "You don't have to pretend with me. I want to understand." Was this the moment she had been waiting for? The opportunity to share the truth rather than the veneer she had constructed? She sensed that Richard was inviting her to dig deeper, to reveal the raw essence of herself, not merely for his understanding, but for her own evolution. Jenna inhaled sharply, summoning up the courage to pull off the mask that had served her so well, until now. "I've been working a job that's unsavory. I was employed to sabotage a blind date for money. That's the bedrock of my reality." Richard leaned back slightly, processing the revelation, a flicker of something in his eyes that looked remarkably like empathy. "Why would you risk it all? Your happiness, your time here with me?" His question hung heavy, as she realized her journey was not merely about survival but also about the courage to realize that happiness can manifest outside one's comfort zone. "Because for the first time, I honestly don't want to be that person anymore," she confessed, her voice quaking but resolute. "What if you could reshape that life?" he offered, his tone imbued with warmth. "What if you could see yourself in a new light? I know you can be more than just what you've had to be." His words struck a chord within her, a promise of what could be rather than a knotted fixation on what had been. Encouraged, Jenna found direction amidst the shadows of uncertainty. This moment had opened her eyes to opportunities that echoed back to the little dreams she had tucked away. But with growth came fear, the persistent whisper of doubt. Could she truly face her future with Richard? Or would diving into this connection mean losing herself again amidst the perils of vulnerability? Before the answer fully settled, a fleeting thought pierced through the haze. Was her desire for love strong enough to rewrite the narratives of her own life? As Jenna locked eyes with Richard, she felt the stirring of conviction mingle with trepidation at what taking this leap might mean. Clarity began to rise from within her, but just then her phone buzzed again, pulling her back momentarily from the edge of this brave new space. Jenna's heart dropped as she read the message. It was from the person behind the sabotage, threatening to expose her unless she fulfilled her end of their shady deal. Anxiety flared within her before she made a decision. In that instant of clarity, she realized she was standing at a significant crossroad. Would she cower from her responsibility, or seize the chance to reclaim her narrative and embrace risk in both her professional life and this new, burgeoning connection with Richard? The moment felt electric, layered with a tension that could cripple or empower. What lay beyond this juncture was unknown, but one truth pulsed hotly within her. She could no longer silence her ambition, nor could she allow fear to swallow the connection they had begun to build. Taking a breath, Jenna was ready to answer, not just the text, but the call of her own heart, intertwining her path with Richard's, ready to face the intricate tapestry of her life once more. But as she contemplated her next move, shadows of her past loomed closer, eager to remind her that no choice was ever without consequence. The delicate balance of her burgeoning love hung in the air, and the time was drawing near when she would have to face all that she had feared, yet so deeply longed to embrace. Jenna's fingers trembled as she reflected on the message hovering on her phone screen. Each word seemed to taunt her, echoing the fear she had tried to suppress. The urgency pricked at her skin, forcing her back into her old habits of self-preservation. Yet, as Richard watched her, something began to shift. A pulse of determination surged within her as she glanced up, locking eyes with him. In that moment she realized that this was more than just about her obligations. It was about reclaiming her identity. The weight of the past still clung to her, but a flicker of hope ignited against the odds. The determination began to drown out the whispers of doubt. "I can't hide from my choices any longer," Jenna declared, her voice stronger than she had ever anticipated. "I have to confront him, the person behind this situation. I have to take control of my life." Richard's gaze remained steady, an anchor in the tumult of her emotions. He nodded encouragingly, sensing the resolve that had begun to crystallize. "But you don't have to do it alone," he reminded her gently. "Use this moment to step forward. Let's face it together." Words hung in the air, and the encouragement from Richard helped cast a glimmer of light onto her path. For the first time, rather than spiraling deeper into anxiety, she felt a surge of clarity. The decision to confront her past was no longer just about salvaging her present. It was about creating a future for herself and Mia. "All right, I'll send him a message," Jenna stated, surprising even herself with the firmness underlying her statement. Her heart raced as she opened her messaging app again, the familiar dread gnawing at the edges of her resolve. Yet, this time was different. With Richard beside her, she felt bolstered by imperative motivation. As her fingers grazed over the screen, she felt Richard's hand resting over hers, grounding her. The warmth of his touch diffused the rising panic, allowing her to focus. "Tell him you're done with this. You're not going to be intimidated anymore," Richard encouraged, his voice low and steady. "You make the rules of your life from here, Jenna." With an exhale, Jenna typed a swift but assertive response, concise and to the point. "I'm done with this. The identity you've created for me ends here. I will no longer comply with your threats." She pressed send and felt a mixture of exhilaration and terror cascade through her. It was the first time in years she had dared to stand her ground against someone who sought to control her path. The rush of empowerment surged through her as she felt Richard's proud gaze upon her. For the briefest instant, she let herself revel in the refracted freedom of taking back agency over her life. Yet, despite the clarity, doubt lingered, chilling the warmth that had been ignited. What if her actions led to more chaos? What if the fallout jeopardized her fragile connection with Richard? That was bold, Richard commended, breaking through her spiraling thoughts. "Whatever happens next, you're leading your narrative now." "I know," she replied, the words shaking from her lips. "But what if I lose everything again? What if this backfires?" His presence remained a steady pulse. "Then we'll figure it out together," he reassured, the conviction in his voice brimming with possibility. "You've survived worse, Jenna. You are capable of navigating this storm." Her heart fluttered, realizing that he was extending to her the safety of partnership in this journey. The potential of facing her past alongside Richard became a lifeline more potent than anything she could have imagined. She needed to learn how to let people in. She had to embrace vulnerability if she ever hoped to grow. But even amid that revelation, she faced yet another challenge. Would she be able to accept help? Could she unravel the learned habits of self-sufficiency? The tension grew as the delivery alert pinged on her phone, informing her that her message had been seen. There was no turning back now. The confrontation with her past loomed as ominously as ever. Gathering her thoughts, Jenna straightened her spine and faced Richard. "This just became real. I'm scared of what he'll do next. I have to be prepared for anything." "And if he threatens you again?" Richard asked, eyebrows knitted in concern. "You won't face it alone." The knot of tension in her chest tightened. She understood that vulnerability was the bridge that could connect them, yet it terrified her. "Richard," she began cautiously, "if this leads to something bigger, I want you to know, I don't know where I fit in your life, especially with everything going on." He shook his head. "We tackle one challenge at a time. Right now it's about you. You deserve this moment of clarity. Just don't shy away from it. Embrace it." A new wave of courage washed over her as the enormity of the fight ahead dawned upon her. Taking a deep breath, Jenna reached out to him, accepting the warmth that radiated between them. "I won't lose myself again, not with you beside me," she declared, feeling the truth of those words bolster her resolve. As they planned their next steps, an ominous notification interrupted their exchange, the shadow of her past looming larger than she had anticipated. With another message from her former boss, the stakes had just intensified, threatening everything she held dear lest she did not act decisively. The game had shifted, and Jenna knew she had to prepare to face the consequences of her newfound defiance. But would she possess the strength to withstand the fallout? Or would her ambition cost her the very thing she had sought to protect? The moment of truth was upon her, and she felt the storm gathering on the horizon. As Jenna stared at the screen, dread coiled in her gut like a serpent ready to strike. The new message blinked ominously, a reminder that she had stirred the pot of her past. What had once felt like a vague tension now presented itself in technicolor clarity. The confrontation was not merely a choice but a necessity, with consequences rippling across her life at breakneck speed. She hesitated for only a moment, anticipating a sardonic reply from her former boss. Yet beneath the wave of anxiety, she discovered a flicker of resolve that she hadn't felt in years. She had only just begun to reclaim the parts of herself that had languished in fear and compliance. "Whatever comes next, I'm ready," she whispered to herself, barely audible, but the words held gravity. Richard, still next to her, remained alert to her silent turmoil, his eyes cautious but unwavering. "Let's take a walk," he suggested, sensing her need for movement. The act of walking with a purpose and direction grounded her amidst uncertainty. They left the warmth of the cafe, stepping onto the bustling street where the cool evening air encircled them, invigorating her senses. "Talk to me," Richard prompted as they navigated the throng of passers-by, his tone encouraging but firm. "You need to process what just happened." Jenna inhaled deeply, the chaos of the world around them contrasting sharply with the inner tumult within her. "I'm just scared. What if he retaliates? What if I let Mia down?" Each word felt heavy with ramifications, but there was also a burgeoning sense of freedom lacing her sentences. "You're not letting anyone down by taking control," Richard countered gently, encouraging her contemplation. "You're reclaiming your narrative for Mia, for yourself. You're not just a victim anymore. You're a warrior." The imagery struck a chord within her. She envisioned herself armed, ready to battle the dragons of her past, not merely to fend them off but to challenge them directly. The thought filled her with adrenaline, sparking an emboldened ambition she had thought dormant. "Warrior," she repeated, tasting the word on her tongue. It felt unfamiliar yet invigorating. She allowed herself a moment to embrace the strength it signaled, her resilience, her choices reshaping her story from victimhood to agency. They continued to walk, weaving through the city streets, the chaos around them punctuating the unfolding clarity within her mind. Each footstep served as a firm declaration of her commitment to this path. "Remember the day we met?" Richard broke through her thoughts, a small smile breaking on his face. "You were nervous about that job interview. I could sense it. But you nailed it. You've faced challenges before." She chuckled softly, trying to grasp the fullness of his words, recalling the confidence that had glimmered at the time. "That feels like ages ago," she murmured, her mind racing ahead to the future. "Maybe this is just another interview," Richard suggested, "but instead of landing a job, you're securing your life back." The analogy reinforced her resolve. The confrontation with her past had all the elements of high stakes, the nerves, the desire to impress, and the deep-seated need to prove her worth. Her heart beat faster in rhythm with the growing determination. As they neared a park, she could see families gathered around, laughter and love filling the evening air. A stark contrast framed her own inner tumult, sparking a longing in her heart that she had tried to suppress. Would she be able to foster a future filled with such vibrancy, or would this confrontation consume her? Just then Jenna's phone vibrated again. This time her heart raced in a different manner. She didn't want to look, but the sensation pulled at her. Richard stopped, watching her carefully, a mix of patience and intensity in his expression. "Go on, just face it head first," he urged. Jenna took a deep breath, her fingers trembling as she unlocked the device. The new message displayed was terse yet menacing. "You won't get away with this. You think you can walk away unscathed? You have no idea what you're up against." Chills crept down her spine as the weight of the threat bore down on her. She could sense the tension shifting like the wind, carrying an uncertain warning. The stakes were swiftly elevating, and with her heart pounding in her ears, she felt the gravity of her situation intensify. "Richard," she breathed, the tremor in her voice betraying her growing apprehension. He stepped closer, shielding her from the encroaching dread she felt. "We'll deal with whatever comes. You've got this. Remember, you're the warrior now." The affirmation sparked a light within her, igniting her fight-or-flight response. Jenna understood that the next steps would demand every ounce of strength she had kindled within herself. "I won't back down," she declared surely, though the threat loomed large. In the shadows a storm waited, and the anticipation of the upcoming confrontation sent a thrill of fear and excitement coursing through her veins. The need to confront her past, to emerge victorious amid tumult, was the only way she could truly carve out the future she envisioned for herself and Mia. But even as she stood firm, the question lingered. Was she prepared to battle not only the threats around her but also the shadows of her own mind? The moment of reckoning neared, and she felt the swirling chaos poised to consume her once more. The city lights flickered like stars against the encroaching darkness as Jenna stood rooted in place, her heart racing in time with the growing rhythm of her determination. The unyielding threat echoed in her mind, but alongside it, a clarity emerged. It was time to wield the armor of her past lessons, distilled in fear, resilience, and now, resolve. "Richard, we can't just stand here. I need to meet this head-on," she announced, weaving purpose into her words. This newfound audacity startled even her, the juxtaposition against her former hesitance strikingly evident. She felt the weight of her decision hanging in the air, like a promise beckoning her forward. "Let's find a place to talk," Richard suggested. His eyes crinkled with concern, but also pride. He was becoming her rock in the tumult. They found a modest bench under a sprawling oak tree that seemed to stand watch over their private moment amid the bustling park. Jenna took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. She had prepared herself for this moment. It was time to visualize what she would say, how she would confront the Goliath of her past. "Think about the last time you felt powerless," Richard prompted, leaning forward to lock eyes with her. "What did you learn from it?" "It wasn't just fear," Jenna recalled. "It was the realization that I surrendered my power. I let others dictate my worth." "Exactly," Richard nodded, his enthusiasm igniting her confidence. "You're not that person anymore. Every confrontation is a chance to reclaim what belongs to you." His encouragement unraveled something deep within her. She had not simply pressed pause on her life. She had actively participated in her own narrative, tilting away from victimhood. The shift felt liberating, and she seized the opportunity to redefine what it meant to confront her demons. Jenna took another steadying breath. "I will approach him. Not with anger, but with clarity." The realization flickered. Anger was a reaction, but clarity was empowerment. "Good," Richard smiled. "Be confrontational but grounded. It's about standing your ground." For a moment, the noise of the park faded into background ambience. Jenna's mind opened to the potential of her choices. She envisioned the setting of the impending confrontation. The office, the exchanged words, the exchange of power shifting back toward her. The image solidified in her consciousness. "This is my chance to tell him what I will no longer tolerate," she announced, voice firm and unwavering. "I will set boundaries. I will not be a pawn in his game anymore." Richard's approving nod bolstered her conviction. Together they projected strength. She felt it flow within her as if she had been gearing up for this very match her entire life. Then a subtle shift disrupted her daydreaming as Richard's phone buzzed to life. His eyes darted to the screen, widening for a split second before he glanced back at her, concern palpable. "It's Mia's school," he said, the urgency breaking their focused atmosphere. "There's been an incident." The chill from earlier rushed back, fracturing her resolve momentarily. "What kind of incident?" Jenna asked, instinctively leaning closer, driven by a mother's instinct. "Let me check." He skimmed the message, brows knitted. "It seems she was involved in a conflict with another student. The school thinks it might need parental guidance." Panic tore through Jenna, her mind racing. All thoughts of her impending confrontation squeezed into the back of her consciousness, replaced by an overwhelming desire to protect Mia. "We need to go now," Jenna decided, determination no longer wavering. But guilt gnawed at her resolve. This was the moment she had been preparing for. Yet here was a different war to fight. One right in her own family, another dragon to slay. With her heart conflicted between readiness for the confrontation looming and the immediate priority of her child's welfare, Jenna faced an unexpected crossroads. Would she be able to balance both fights without losing herself in the process? "Let's go. You'll handle this, Jenna. You're still the warrior," Richard encouraged, his steady presence anchoring her. As they rose from the bench, Jenna felt time constricting around her. She had a greater battle on multiple fronts, not just with her past, but with the unforeseen complexities of motherhood entwined with her newfound strength. As they hurried away, she wondered, was she prepared to fight for her daughter, knowing fully well that she had also set into motion a confrontation that would unravel her past? The stakes were no longer just about herself, but about the future she envisioned for both her and Mia. A future laden with obstacles waiting to be conquered. Shadows loomed as new challenges awaited, but Jenna felt the unmistakable pulse of determination coursing through her. The drive to Mia's school felt interminable. Each red light was an agonizing reminder of the urgency of the situation at hand. Jenna's thoughts raced as she envisioned her daughter, small and vulnerable, caught in an uncharted struggle. She could hear Mia's laughter, a pure echo that now felt distant, replaced by worry and the unshakable weight of motherhood. Focus on Mia's needs, she told herself, pushing aside her own anxieties about her meeting with her boss. There would be time for that later. For now, she needed to channel her energy into diagnosing the problem at school. What had happened? How had her daughter found herself in conflict? As they pulled up to the school, Jenna caught sight of the brick facade that had once felt so welcoming. Today it seemed intimidating. The hustle of students milling about, the echo of laughter and chaos, struck a discordant note in her heart. She took a steadying breath as she and Richard exited the car. "We can handle this," she murmured, mostly for her own benefit. Inside, the atmosphere was thick. The principal's office was ahead, and with each step Jenna took, she felt a mix of apprehension and resolve. The principal, Mrs. Cummings, would no doubt have her own perspective on whatever had transpired between Mia and the other student. Was this conflict rooted in something deeper? Jenna forced herself not to succumb to the fear that gripped her. "Mia is strong," she reminded herself. "That strength comes from me." When they entered Mrs. Cummings's office, the principal gestured for them to take a seat. Jenna could see the concern etched on the woman's face. "Thank you for coming so quickly, Jenna." Richard. "We need to discuss what happened today." Jenna's heart pounded as she listened to the details unravel. Mia had stood up to a classmate who had been bullying one of her friends, and in the process, she'd found herself at the center of the conflict. There was no reprimand for Mia, but rather a need for intervention. "It's important that we support her in navigating these situations rather than suppressing her spirit," Mrs. Cummings said, her voice steady yet warm. Hearing just that, a new depth of pride surged within Jenna. Her daughter was not only standing her ground but was willing to protect others. The echoes of her own struggles reverberated in her mind. There in that moment, Jenna recognized a powerful parallel. This was the same confrontation she needed to embrace in her work life. As the principal reassured them about coming up with supportive strategies for Mia, Jenna felt the pieces connecting, her two worlds coalescing. After the meeting on the drive back, Richard's voice shattered her reflections. "You know, Jenna, Mia is learning from you. This is your moment to shine, too." The realization jolted her into clarity. She wasn't merely a mother reacting to her daughter's challenges. She was a teacher in resilience, a canny strategist, and a partner in another fight of her life. It was a chance to show Mia how to assert oneself without backing down. A living lesson in both battlefields, personal and professional. The deep-rooted fear she had suffocated within her began to warp into focus again. The confrontation with her boss was brewing just beneath the surface. She needed to articulate her boundaries with the same vigor that Mia had shown. Now both battles were connected, a continuum of her growth aimed at reclaiming agency over her life. As they pulled into their driveway, Jenna wondered about her meeting with her boss tomorrow, envisioning both betrayal and resolution ahead. Time was slipping away, and tomorrow she would walk into that office swinging. There would be no letdowns, no retreats. But the looming weight of both battles gnawed at her. Could she really handle it all? As she stepped out of the car, it hit her. Was she balancing motherhood and her own confrontational growth, or was she walking a tightrope that threatened to snap? The stakes were rising, and the truth was undeniable. Tomorrow promised not just another fight but a chance to redefine everything. Would she emerge victorious, both for her daughter and herself? What awaited her was not merely a confrontation with her boss but a critical junction of self-discovery, where the past and present collided. The real question lingered. Who would win when the dust settled? The morning sun filtered through the kitchen window, and the aroma of fresh coffee filled the air. Yet Jenna felt none of the warmth it promised. Anxiety twisted taut in her stomach, a reminder of what was to come. Today she wouldn't only be a mother, she would stand firm for herself, facing a battle still shrouded in uncertainty. The stakes felt higher than anything she had encountered before. As she prepared for work, each mundane task felt monumental, a ritual infused with purpose. The way she stirred her coffee, the precise folding of Mia's lunch, each moment was a reminder of her dual role. The realization that she held the power to influence not just Mia's fate but her own resonated within her like a steady drumbeat. The day ahead could transform the narrative of her life. In the car, the chaos of morning traffic mirrored her tangled thoughts. Toward the end of their commute, Jenna glanced at Richard, who looked unusually calm. "You ready?" he asked, his eyes meeting hers with a steadiness that anchored her. For an instant she hesitated, feeling the weight of his expectation before she replied, "I will be." Their conversation shifted to Mia, light-hearted about her daughter's antics, but Jenna kept catching herself darting back to the looming meeting. What if she didn't articulate her thoughts clearly enough? What if her boss dismissed her concerns? The internal dialogue spiraled until Jenna forced herself to focus on her boundaries, on the messages she had practiced in her mind. After arriving at the office, Jenna felt the familiar pulse of her workplace, the chatter of her colleagues buzzing around her. She took a deep breath, silencing the doubts creeping in. To project strength, she decided to tackle a minor task first to center herself. Ideally, this would buy her some time to gather her thoughts. She pored over a project report, aligning her findings and drafting bullet points that expressed her concerns. Suddenly, she recalled the way Mia had stood up for her friend. There was no room for vulnerability now. Jenna's resolve hardened. She was not just any employee, she was an advocate for her worth. Ultimately, her scheduled meeting arrived like an uninvited storm. Her boss, Mr. Davenport, was already seated, ushering her in with a nod. The sharp corners of his desk seemed to mirror the edge of tension prickling the air. Jenna squared her shoulders in determination, brushing back her fears. "Thank you for meeting with me," she began, finding strength in her voice. "I've been reflecting on my contributions and the direction of my role. I've noticed certain limits on my ability to innovate, and it's becoming increasingly challenging for me to align with the team's goals." His gaze narrowed as if weighing her words. "You want to change your responsibilities?" The question was blunt, devoid of curiosity. I want to change how I'm perceived and involved in projects, she clarified, finding a rhythm. I believe I can provide more than what I'm currently assigned to, and I need to have a conversation about how we can make that happen. His silence loomed ominously, echoing her internal doubts. Jenna pressed forward, fueled by the image of Mia standing her ground. She refused to let hesitation betray her. Supporting my own ideas isn't just about my career progression, she continued, her tone steady. It's about the team moving forward. I want to be part of that, fully engaged. Davenport finally leaned back, stretching his fingers as he processed her request. The tension in Jenna's core coiled tighter. Would this be the moment where she fell or rose? Yet beyond her anxiety, she uncovered a deeper revelation. This was not merely about her job, but a question of self-worth, pushing past limitations rooted in fear. The same strength she wished to instill in Mia was awakening within her, reshaping her identity. As Mr. Davenport's face shifted from neutrality to contemplation, Jenna realized that her voice could indeed alter the landscape ahead. But would he be receptive, or would she find herself still fighting an invisible battle? Their eyes met, the silence thick, but she was no longer afraid, ready for whatever verdict he would deliver. The moment hung in balance, carrying the weight of all she had fought for. Jenna steeled herself for his response, the stakes higher than ever. Would she break through the limits she had felt contained by? Or would this be yet another setback? Jenna's heart drummed in her chest, a chorus of anxious anticipation. The seconds stretched, expanding into a painful eternity as she meticulously scanned Mr. Davenport's face for any sign of a decision. Time stood still, until he finally broke the silence, shifting in his chair. Your ambitions are commendable, Jenna, he said slowly, a hint of something in his tone that felt like condescension. But the framework here is quite structured. Changing perceptions can be complicated. The word lingered in the air, a heavy weight pinning her to the moment. Jenna's mind raced. She had anticipated resistance, yet the faint trace of doubt in his voice ignited a spark of defiance within her. I understand, but I believe that complexity presents opportunity, she replied, striving for a confident cadence. I want to collaborate on innovative projects that we both recognize can propel the team forward. His brow furrowed as he considered her words. You need to demonstrate your capabilities before we can think outside our current functions. Numbers, results, those speak louder in this environment. Show me you can perform at the next level, and we can discuss your role. Then let me take the lead on an upcoming project, she proposed, driven by an impulsive yet calculated courage that she hadn't expected to summon. Let me prove that I am capable of more. Intrigued but measured, he leaned forward, fingers intertwined. That's a bold offer. You'll need to manage your current workload efficiently. Can you handle it? Jenna swallowed hard, weighing the implications of his words. More responsibility. Pressure. Could she handle it? The question loomed larger than she had anticipated, a reflection of her own insecurities. Yet the memory of Mia's fearless defiance pushed her forward. Yes, I can. Whatever it takes. Davenport raised an eyebrow, perhaps impressed, perhaps skeptical. All right then, we'll see how you fare. You're presenting to the team next week. I trust you can deliver results. Thank you, she replied, a wave of determination flooding over her. As she exited his office, Jenna couldn't shake off the tightening coil of exhilaration mixed with fear. A chance. The very word pulsated with potential, but it also brought a blistering, full-bodied dread of failure. Sitting at her desk, she plugged away at her current responsibilities. But her mind swirled with the future project. Driven by the knowledge that this was no longer just about her career, Jenna began to view the stakes through a lens of ambition. No longer could she be quieted by complacency. If she was to progress, she needed a plan. Jenna spent her lunch break scheming article outlines, brainstorming innovative approaches, and connecting with colleagues to gauge their insights. The more she immersed herself in the details, the clearer her vision became. She was moving from anxiety to action. By the end of the day, an unexpected calm settled over her like a balm soothing frayed nerves. She was doing this, not just for herself but as an extension of the fearless spirit she was nurturing within Mia. Somehow, that connection sparked a flicker of confidence that she hadn't known existed. Yet as she sat back in her chair, reflecting on the day's tumultuous shift, an unsettling thought crept in. What if she followed through and discovered that she wasn't truly cut out for the leadership she craved? The idea gnawed at her. What if success revealed a facet of herself she had yet to confront? Exhausted yet exhilarated, she left the office feeling both electrified and introspective, a blend of excitement and realism threading through her mind. Standing outside, she inhaled the evening air, sensing it was charged with the possibilities of tomorrow. But as she turned to head home, a sinking feeling clawed at her. This was only the beginning of a much larger confrontation, not just within her workplace but with herself. The stakes had escalated, pushing her to a fateful precipice of self-discovery. She welcomed the challenge but braced herself for the inevitable turbulence that lay ahead. For Jenna, the next week would unveil not just a project, but a deeper battle with her own capabilities, and she was determined to rise regardless of the outcome. What lay beyond this first attempt at transformation? Would the real battle emerge as she fought to establish her place, or was it something even more personal waiting to be unearthed? Jenna stood in front of the mirror, taking in the reflection of a woman who had transformed in ways she never imagined possible. Today marked a new chapter, the culmination of months spent wrestling with her fears and redefining her identity. The project presentation was set for later that morning, and echoes of motivation surged through her. This was her moment, not merely to showcase her professionalism, but to assert her value in a world that often overlooked the strength of single mothers. Her heart swelled with a blend of anticipation and self-belief. Gone were the days of feeling small under the weight of titles and expectations. Today, she was not just a participant in her work life. She was a leader, empowered by her challenges, determined to conquer the ones still ahead. Richard had been her steadfast ally throughout this journey, providing insight and encouragement. He had helped her see the potential that lay within her, pushing her to harness her struggles as stepping stones toward success. As she placed the last of her carefully curated index cards in her presentation folder, a quiet resolve fortified her spirit. Jenna understood that the stakes were high, but so too was the possibility for meaningful change. Arriving at work, the energy buzzed with expectation. Colleagues gathered, murmuring amongst themselves about the upcoming presentations, and for the first time, Jenna felt a surge of belonging. She greeted her coworkers with genuine warmth, feeling the contrasts to her previous lifetime when she often faded into the background. Yet today was different. It was time to claim her narrative unapologetically. As she stepped into the conference room, she felt the familiar flutter of nerves spark within her. But as she arranged her notes, the negative whispers of self-doubt began to fade. Drawing in a deep breath, she prepared to silence the shadows of her past. Richard gave her an encouraging nod from the doorway, a beacon of reassurance that propelled her forward. With each word she spoke, confidence radiated from her. She laid out her vision with clarity, addressing the issues plaguing their current projects and proposing innovative solutions. She didn't just recite statistics, she brought her lived experience to the forefront, connecting the emotions behind the metrics. Imagine a team working synergistically, she urged, her voice steady, where we amplify each other's strengths and support one another's growth. We're not just a collection of employees. We are a community that can redefine success by embracing every facet of our backgrounds. As she concluded, Jenna surveyed the room. Eyes widened in surprise and admiration. She could sense the shift, the magnetic energy circling her proposals. For the first time, she wasn't merely a cog in a machine, but a force poised to incite change. Her inner warrior had risen, confronting the old wounds that had kept her silent for too long. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Mr. Davenport, once a figure of intimidation, regarded her with newfound respect. Jenna, I appreciate your insight. I hadn't considered our team dynamics in that way. This could lead to improvements across the board. Her heart soared at the validation, but it was more than just his acknowledgement. It was the recognition of her worth and the ability to influence her environment. She realized that she was not simply a mother or an employee. She was a leader in her own right, capable of steering her own course without apology or fear. As she left the conference room, exhilaration coursed through her veins. Jenna's identity had crystallized into something unshakable. She had overcome, risen above, and embraced the complexities of her life. She was worthy of leadership, love, and every opportunity that came her way. With Richard by her side, they stepped outside, the sun illuminating their path forward. "Incredible job today, Jenna," he exclaimed, his pride evident. "You proved to everyone what you're capable of." A smile broke across her face, not just reflecting a moment of achievement but embodying a journey of transformation. "I finally realized that every struggle I faced has led me to this moment. It's not just my goal anymore. It's about carving a better life for Mia, to show her what it looks like to fight for your dreams unapologetically." Richard took her hand, their connection sealing the promise of future endeavors together. "And I'll be right here, cheering you on every step of the way. This is just the beginning for both of us." As they walked toward the future, Jenna felt an exhilarating sense of self-fulfillment surge within her. Today marked a turning point, a beacon of hope not only for herself, but for Mia. She had achieved a breakthrough, flipping the narrative of her life from one constructed of adversity to one celebrating resilience, ambition, and love. With every step, she reinforced her commitment to be both a warrior and a mother, understanding that she would continue to confront her past but now equipped with the strength of self-awareness and confidence. Jenna had emerged victorious in this battle of self-discovery, ready to forge ahead with clarity, purpose, and an unwavering belief in her worth. The path may still hold challenges, but with each stride, she stepped into her future, knowing she had conquered fear and embraced her truth. Now it is your turn to dive into the journey of personal growth. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below your reactions and theories about Jenna's incredible journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and understand the power of resilience. Don't wait even one more second to join this community of true fans who appreciate personal overcoming stories.